For today's topic, we are going to answer some of your questions about the upcoming tests on the 12th of June. I'm sure all of you are waiting for them. We are also eager to see what will happen. Today with me is our founder and CEO Veselin Vasilev.
Hello everyone.
As well as Stamen, one of our software developers.
The idea of this live stream is basically to discuss what we are going to see on the first tests coming on 12th of June. So without further ado, let's quickly describe what we have accomplished so far and what you guys can expect on these tests. Right away I can tell you the game is far away from finished. We are having so few systems that are in the core of the game itself, and this is the aim of this test. So Stamen, as a software developer, is one of the main developers working on those features, and he'll quickly describe what you can see working there and what we are expecting to be working. You are the guys who are going to tell us, is it or not?
So functionally speaking, on the 12th you'll be able to log in, create a character with some partial customization, enter the world, and from there explore the map that we've prepared.
Yes.
Along with having a chat feature that will allow you to chat with people around and us, the developers.
Yeah, so guys, you'll be able to directly ask us questions inside the game. The main idea of the test itself is to see how many players online the servers can handle, and on top of that, the movement system is, as you probably well know, is at the core of the gameplay. So once we have this sorted out and we are sure that everything regarding this system is fine, then we can move on later stages, where we can develop the combat, the questing system, the NPCs, the raids, dungeons, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. So starting at 12th of June, as you already know, that's everything that we are going to test. The other important thing for this live stream is to get closer to you and answer as many as questions we have written inside the forum topic, questions from the live stream itself. So basically we can move on to answering the questions, first starting from the forum topic, because we have plenty of interesting questions there. Once we are done with them, if you guys have something to ask, you can go directly and write there, or just wait once we finish with the forum topic questions. We'll move on to answering questions from the live stream chat. So Julian, you can start directly with the first question.
So the first question is from Jastro. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce it right. So he is asking, how much will we be able to explore? Will it be a very small piece? Sorry.
Yes, for sure it will be a small piece, if we can say it like this, because we've created a map that is specially dedicated for the tests themselves. There, at current stage, we don't have any kind of PvE, any kind of PvP. As previously we've said, the aim of this test is just to create a character, get inside and chat and move together with your friends and discuss topics with us directly inside the game. We can probably move on and see what will be the next questions.
Okay, so the next question is from Andrgole, maybe. Don't know. So he is asking if the stress test of the servers on the 12th will only be for supporters and well-deserved ones.
You can answer the question yourself.
Yes, we've written it many times. The first test and all tests from the pre-alpha and alpha will be for supporters and honored accounts. On later stages we can choose some of the free accounts to come join and test to get much bigger, let's say a bigger stress test with
Yeah,
much more
but
people. But that will be after maybe the alpha.
that will
in the
be
beta.
probably in the beta, yeah, because there we'll need to create even bigger stress tests on the servers, but we are far away from that stage. So even now, just counting on the supporter and honored accounts, we are having quite a lot of people there. So basically,
Yeah.
that's more than enough for us to understand where we are, what we can improve in terms of stability. Because guys, I'm pretty sure that once you land in the pre-alpha test map, you'll find bugs that we haven't even discovered ourselves, even though we tried harder and harder every day to find some glitches inside the map, some glitches inside the movement system, etc, etc. So in a way later stage we'll be able to let all the players from free accounts to come and help us test the servers. Probably we can go through the next questions directly to the questions, because those names in some of the members are quite hard to pronounce, and it will be better to go directly on the questions.
Okay, so let's continue. Next question. How long will the June 12 stress test last? Well, it will last for 8 hours.
Yes, the thing is that once we finish with these tests, we will gather the feedback from the community, and then we'll schedule the next tests, which we will later on tell you when they will be.
Yes. Okay. I think this answers the next question, which is, do you already have a test schedule for next week's month, and can you share some of it with us?
Yes, and we are so quickly to,
Yes,
the,
yes.
to the reviewing of the next tests. So once we end up with the test from 12th of June, the next one will be 2 weeks later. However, it won't be at Saturday this time, it will be on Friday, and it will be 12 hours long. There we will not participate as team members, it will be only to the supporter and honored accounts at this stage. The aim of this is to allow the people not to focus only on us and ask us questions or interact with us, just to allow them to go themselves alone, and we will just monitor from outside how the things are happening. It's really important to say that for these tests, regarding the movement system, the chat system, the stability of the servers, they will not end up with one testing, because I'm quite sure once you are guys there will be bugs which we haven't imagined, which we haven't been able to catch. So expect something like 2 or 3 tests just on the movement system, just on creating the character, just on seeing how the players are interacting with the map, because there is plenty of glitches you can find in one newly created map. So for us it's important to find everything and fix it, and on the next test that is available, you should go there and you should see if the bug that's reported from you is already fixed, and if not, we can keep on until everything is polished to the perfect stage.
Yes, that's the plan. So,
Okay.
we continue. Do you plan to make Discord channels for testers?
Yes, we will make specific Discord channel, and everyone who will participate in the test will be invited there. We'll have separate channel for reporting every bugs that you guys found. And once we are done with this test, we'll close those specific channels. We'll keep the information for us, so we can process it, we can resolve the bugs, and move on further.
Okay. So, the next question is, I guess, for Stamen. Will we find the music from pre-test live streams announcement video in the game?
Good question. I'm not sure what the exact soundtrack that we had in the announcement
we had
video.
several discussing.
I know that we have a soundtrack on the login screen, I believe.
Yes, there you will be for sure. We were discussing some this week, or some proposals.
Yeah, there was
that
a
we had.
discussion
Yeah.
on what soundtrack and what effects to have playing while people run around. But I don't think we have a final decision on that.
For the tests themselves, because we are still finding some bugs on our internal tests, we are mainly focused to solve what we can find before the tests. Probably the aim for the goal for these tests was to have background music, but will it be there? You see, coming on 12th of June. It's
Yes, it's
still debatable.
not 100% sure.
Yes.
So, next question. Will the pre-alpha map be available in the final version of the game? If so, where will it be located on the continent?
It's a really good question. We were discussing that our plans for this map in future will at least go to a stage where we can use it as a specific battleground, as we can use it as another test stage. Because what you have seen on the videos we released on the test map, the main idea for this map is to not have anything specific with the war of the game. Some hints here and there hidden, but for now we think we can probably rework this map in future as a specific battleground map, nothing else.
Okay. What exactly do we have to do inside the alpha to be of help to them, to us?
Ruin the game. It's as simple as that. We would like you to break every single thing you can break. Doesn't matter if it's gonna be a bug on character creation screen. Doesn't matter if it's gonna be a bug while moving in the map and you're facing a tree and you'll be able to pass through the tree. This is quite important for us. We are working hard to have those things sorted out before you, but as you may know, there is no game with no bugs at all. We are quite far from it, and we would like you to help with this, find more bugs.
Some other things that you can encounter is potentially getting stuck on terrain. This is one of the things we've been, or that
Yeah, it's
our
quite
artist
possible.
team is looking at, to fix small holes or places where the character gets stuck.
Exactly.
Falling off the map, I think that should be impossible.
But still, guys, I think you'll be able to do it. I don't know why. I just have the feeling that the players will be able to do it. Although we know currently, in our understanding, it's impossible. Okay. Anything else?
Yes. Will we be able to see some parts on the map plain?
A plane by
Like parts on the map with nothing.
no,
I think.
no. Everything on the map, on the playable map in the tests, will be done from our 3D artists and environment artists.
Can we get out of the initial area and explore the surrounding areas a bit?
No.
No.
Right away, we are telling you no. Well, if you don't count falling off the map as getting out of the map, so it's two way to answer this.
Yes.
But the main idea for you on these tests is not to get out of this map. If you do it, it will be considered as bug.
Yes, and you have to report it.
Yeah.
Will people from different parts of the world be able to use the same servers?
This is quite good questions. As you can see, guys, we are loving the technical questions because we feel like more comfortable there. Although we haven't been able to do pretty good job with the stream itself, we are quite better in making game development. So for the tests, we'll have one server which will be located in Europe. That's the aim of the game. when the game is released, it will have several data centers around the world to cover Americas, to cover Europe, to cover Asia.
Yes.
So that's already in the plan. But for sake of the tests themselves, we don't need to launch so many servers around the world to see specific systems how they work.
Okay. Depending on the results of this first test, will we have a second alpha or would they go on to a beta?
Wow, it's quite early to speaking for alpha alone, because we are hard to say that we are even on a pre-alpha stage. As you can
This pre-alpha stage, I guess by the end of the year.
probably by the end of this year we will be at the pre-alpha stage. However, it's quite important to see how fast we'll go from testing one system into testing completely another, because having the movement system done in 100% working stage done for a month is one thing, if you can achieve it and solve all the bugs that were found in the tests. This is one thing, but to solve and have this system working in 5 months is completely another, which again moves the end goal of having the pre-alpha at the end of the year. So that's what is expected, and that's what we believe will happen. Only the future will tell if it's true or not.
I think we answered the next question, which is in the event that the tests go as desired, how long is it estimated until the closed beta begins? The closed beta will be...
Closed beta is too early to
It's
discuss.
too early to discuss, yes. Another one, where can I provide feedback on the closed alpha?
In the specific Discord channels that we are going to create, that's the place.
Okay. So, I guess we are done.
Yeah, we can probably move to some.
No,
Okay.
another one. Can we do different characters to test in the pre-alpha?
Stamen can answer this.
Our plan I'm not sure if our plan changed on this. At one point we're talking we'll allow only one character beta account for the alpha.
Yes. No, for character creation, you'll be able to create more, but the thing is, we have only one race currently available.
They mean the
That was
races.
the question.
Yes.
Yeah. Currently only human is available.
Only human male is
Human male.
available, and that will be the only race for you guys that you'll be able to use on the tests. On the next tests, we plan to have some additional race inside, just to see how it looks and how it feels. But for this one, only human male. I'm pretty sure some people will be completely, not happy about that. But that's the aim of the tests.
This is our very, very first test, so
And it's quite important for us. We are always saying that we are building for the community, from the community. And if we are up to stand behind these words, we should allow you guys to be with us on every stage, on every system, on the road. Otherwise, we are not be building something from the community for the community. That's why we'll put small steps and we'll allow you to go inside, see what we achieved, and get your opinion on that.
super, okay. There's gonna be some PvP or PvE activity to do in the test. Again, no.
Unfortunately, no. It's quite early. It's quite early. There is quite good question from the stream.
Yeah,
coming
I see
Jake
many
Falcon.
questions.
For the humans, we can test all the classes or only one. It's important to say at the tests there will be no classes at all. The main goal, guys, let's not forget, is just to see if we can handle 500 people online in the same area, closed at the same area or more, and how the server behaves. The main aim, just the movement. system. No
Yes.
classes,
Well,
no.
my next question was about the classes,
Yeah.
so we answered that. Could we see missions and level in the pre-alpha or just exploring?
Just exploring.
Just exploring, yes. How will work the chat? An international chat, one in Spanish, another in English?
Stalin is quite good to
Yes.
to answer this
Um,
because he was developing this system.
Currently, there is a few channels. None of them are region locked in any way. So we've divided it into a artist channel, a general channel, a development channel, and a common/say channel. Players can choose in which one they'll chat. Everyone can see all of them. We prefer if you speak in English, because that way everyone will be able to read what you say.
Yes.
Yeah, and the main idea of those channels which we currently created is to have discussions with specifically the 3D artist team, with the developers, just to have your questions a bit structured. That's the idea. Once the game is released, probably even on the next tests, the channels will look completely different, because the aim in the next ones will not be to get in touch with the developers.
Okay, so there's gonna be professionals in the game. Can we test it in the pre-alpha? Again, no.
In those tests, no.
There will be professionals, but
And we have quite good plans for it.
Yes.
But it will be again completely specific tests on this system, not now.
okay. What is the real state of the game and system for report bugs at pre-alpha? How we can proceed?
The system for the first tests for reporting the bugs will be covered only with Discord specific channel. In future we'll create a specific feature inside the game where you'll be able to report directly through the game. But for now, for the first tests, it won't be available.
Well, that's all of the questions about the
Coming from the
Tests.
forum.
from the forum.
yeah.
Yes, from the forum.
So we
topic.
can now move on to
There are
tests
some-
coming from live.
There are some questions for the game overall, if you'd like to answer.
Yeah, so we can probably move to
Or we
answering
can-
questions in general state, not just questions regarding the upcoming tests. So guys, if you have something in mind, something that you have thinking about, now is the place to go directly right inside the live chat of the stream and ask us, so we can discuss things which are not only regarding the tests. I've seen some quite good questions inside the chat. One was, can we give a teaser of new art coming? It's unannounced, but once you log in inside the first tests, there will be a loading screen holding a completely new art, which will be released after the test, so you guys can enjoy it even outside of the game itself. And that probably solves what we can share currently with new art we are working
Okay.
to bring more and more. So
One question more, the free-to-play. Explain to all please your ideas for free-to-play. Well, our ideas for free-to-play is absolutely free-to-play. Everyone will be able to do everything. The only things that you can buy with real money is cosmetic items, such as skins for your weapons and armor,
Customization of
to
animations.
customize your animations and to change the color of your abilities, your spells. No experience boosts or in-game currency or something like that. Items, everything will be available to be grinded inside the game.
Exactly. For us, it's quite important to keep away from the pay-to-win factor. We always hate it when there is some outstanding game which is really nice, and developers on a later stage just decide to monetize the game in a way that destroys the whole feeling of the game itself. So this is one thing that we're really up against.
Okay, so mounts and pets. Yes, we will have mounts and pets.
That's the obvious question. That's like the short answer of this question. We've discussed a lot, and we really think that through the years we were always looking for something that is that should be done on with different approach regarding this system. I really don't like the idea where you have your pet or you have your mount, like 30 of them,
Yes.
and none of them mean nothing to you, just different colors, different
Just a button.
looks, yeah, and that's it. You take no care about this mount, so this is a thing that we really would like to change. It will be hard to get one, and once you get it, you should keep on taking care about your mount. So you having a special relationship between you and your chosen companion as a mount.
Yes.
But more information regarding this we can give at a quite later stage.
yes.
Yeah.
There is a mount, specific mount topic in the forums where you can write your suggestions and discuss anything related to mounts. We are going to read that and discuss it with the team when the time comes for the mounts. So,
There is
PvP with
one.
mounts.
Yeah, this was the question I was also looking at. I think this will bring the PvP system on a completely another level of complexity, which at this stage it will be giving a quite big promise if we say we are going to do that.
Maybe in an expansion.
What we can say, we are not
No.
completely against this feature, but at the moment we would like not to promise such thing. That's
Yes.
the political way of answering this question.
We don't want to give you guys hopes and to expect something that we can deliver. It's not a good way to do things like that.
There is a question: are you guys planning to sell merchandise like t-shirts, trousers, things like that? I need the Minotaur shirt.
Read the whole question.
Yeah, or the t-shirt of Vanillin. Which brings me to another topic, which is really important, which will be announced officially at later stage. But as you guys know, we are all employees of Beastburst Entertainment, and that's why all the accounts that are currently registered with Scars of Honor, in matter of a month, probably even less, we will announce the official website beastburst.com, where you'll be able to purchase specific merchandise. Logging inside the website of Scars of Honor will happen with your account from Beastburst, meaning that all the accounts that we currently have with Scars of Honor will be converted to Beastburst accounts. From Beastburst as a website, you'll be able to download a specific launcher, which will install the game, which will allow you to update, and further on, if we have different games, more games in Scars of Honor, you'll be able to get them from this launcher. So with announcing of Beastburst website, we will announce our merchandise shop.
Okay,
If this
that's-
answer the
that's-
questions.
that's great.
The question.
We have a question. Which of the 3 streams are you reading questions from? Well, we are
From
reading
all of them.
from all of them.
Yeah.
So no problems.
Although we are not a stream specialists,
No.
we now read from all of them.
I guess everyone saw that we
Yeah.
are not specialists in streaming, but things will get better.
Yes, for sure. Well, at least they can get worse than that. So
Worse than that is to
not possible.
not have a stream.
Not possible, yeah.
So crafting is almost in MMOs is important. Hopefully they'll do it just right, maybe. Crafting it, yes, of course we are going to have
Crafting
but
was always at the root of the MMORPG. Without enough crafting, without enough grinding itself, I don't mean like super grindy game that you go there and you grind and that's everything you do and you craft and that's everything you do. No, but it's at the root of the
we must do
MMORPG
it
genre.
just right.
Exactly.
Because in some of the games, crafting is viable to one point, and after that you just don't need that. You just don't want to
but
use that.
the thing is we have the community with us. You guys are here just to test and say are we doing something right or not. We rely a lot on you. That's why we are allowing you at such an early stage to have a touch with the game and tell your feedback regarding what you see.
Yes, Shockmaker, we missed you a lot. Hopefully you get back in Discord.
Yeah, it's about time.
Can we see gameplay if we don't donate?
Currently donations are not
We-
providing any kind of
Yes.
gameplay.
I think the question is, will they see gameplay if they do not participate on the test on the 12th?
Yes, the test will be recorded, but when are we going to show some parts of it? We can't say specifically.
Yes, especially for the first test, it's early to say if we're going to release any video footage containing any materials from the test itself. The best way is to get inside, get support to our Honored account and get inside and see
Yes,
it yourself.
and I want to mention once more, you can record and keep it for your personal use, but you can't stream it or create any kind of videos, content or something like that because of the NDA. And please don't try to break that NDA. Because you will hurt our the image that we are trying to create for the project in a positive way, of course.
Yeah, because you are taking quite a big risk allowing players to get on the test servers at such early stage. It's always a thing that can be really beneficial, but in the same way to be really harmful for us. That's why we are really keeping the NDA
Yes,
tight.
this type of tests are usually made in-house, and you all are gamers, and you know that these tests aren't meant for the public. But we really want to be part of our development and together to make a really great game.
Exactly. There is a nice question from Arrays BG. Is the background of Twitch stream from the actual game? Well, it is from specific assets which are currently debatable if they will go inside the game. There is no
It's
such
custom
zone
made, though.
Yeah, it's custom made, but it is not footage from any specific zone, let's say it like this, planned to be inside the game.
But
It's not even from part from the test map
No.
itself.
but the new zone that you haven't seen, it's coming out awesome.
Yeah, that's
Just beautiful.
a sure thing. So moving on to other questions. Will I be
Yes,
able to change
Victor.
the movement keybinds or any other type of player controls in the test? Stamen can quickly answer. The
Short answer.
short answer. No. Short answer. No.
Not yet.
What
I
about
guess.
in future? What do you think?
So yeah, there is Unity especially actually provides a cool way to set up easy keybind and keybind modification,
Yeah.
which is something that I think will probably do, whether it be on the next text or the one after or the one after that.
Yeah,
Probably depends.
and it's early to say.
It's something that will make it at the end product.
Yeah, that's for sure. At the end product, we will have such functionality.
Something else, maybe?
There is a cool question from Jastro, if I'm pronouncing the name correct.
Yes,
To get to
maybe.
know the Beast Burst Entertainment a little better when you are in the art team and when you work in programming, what things scare you for the future? For the future is for Scarzagon or for Beast Burst Entertainment, there's not really something that we are scary of, or if I think more, I can probably say the only thing that can scare me for the future of Beast Burst Entertainment is not to get away from the community. Such games are always made around the community, and if we come up to a stage where we are so away from our own community, it can be a game changer. It can be breaking the whole thing that we will be building for the years. So that's probably one thing that I can imagine for myself and for plan of the company.
So, I really ask a lot, but I can't fully understand what will the PvP system. Also, for PvE will be main storyline quests or random quests or both? Or what are the main systems that you think to show us in the game?
Well, for sure there will be story-driven quests. That's one thing for sure. The other thing regarding this quest system, we were really discussing and trying to find a way that doesn't make you feel that go and bring 5 carrots, go and kill 5 wolves, go and bring me a
Generic.
tooth of some witch or whatever. That's really a boring thing. It's really important to create a questing system, if we can say it like this, that gives you a special feeling while you're doing your quest. It's not just a matter of I completed 5,000 quests. It's a matter of I finished 15 quests for the past 2 days, but I can really remember all those quests and I can tell you what I've experienced through the journey.
Okay, about the PvP system.
About the PvP system, is announced officially. We'll be having battlegrounds, we'll be having arenas. There were one question regarding 1 versus 1 arena, which I really think it's not a quite good thing, because imagine 2 heroes going inside 1 versus 1 when this will go on.
They can do that in the open world.
But this is not an
There
arena.
is an open world PvP,
Yes.
so
They will be able, but regarding the question, is there gonna be, will there gonna be 1 versus 1 arena?
Yeah.
Currently, I don't think
Not
it's
sure
even
how-
practical
how-
to,
yes,
to
how-
manage
how good.
such thing.
Is it top target combat or is it live action? It's top target.
Really,
Well,
short answer on this.
Yes.
No need for
No.
going further.
Will there be specializations for each class like tank, FPS and healer? Yes, we are going to use the Holy Trinity. Every spec will have 3, every class will have 3 specializations, but we are going to announce them a later stage for every class.
Ivan Yosifov is having quite good question. How big is your team? Did you invest it yourself or you have investment partners? Going with the first part of the questions, how big we are currently a small team. we are always constantly hiring new people. We are always looking for new colleagues. But for us, it's really important to get to know the person well and be sure that this person will suit the team perfectly before hiring and getting this person on board to be part of the team itself. On the next question, yes, I have invested myself, and we also have investors as partners in this company. We currently are 100% self-funded. We don't rely on any crowdfunding campaigns or whatever to run the business. It's always important, it always helps, and we have such thing, but it's not the thing that is driving the company, if I can answer like this. Okay.
So, anything else?
There is a question from Juvelius.
Juvelius.
Yeah, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly.
Yes, I think we answered that a little while back. We won't sell any boosts or in-game currency or something like that in the store. The store will be completely cosmetic.
Spanish realms. Yes, there will be a specific Spanish realms on the test themselves. Every country, all the countries will go into one realm. There won't be localized specific servers.
Yes. To make servers
question
that are
from-
modded or something like that. I'm not sure how good of an idea is to have moddable servers.
No. Servers will be privately hosted from Beastburst Entertainment, and they won't be released to the public. The game itself will be free. So if you like to play the game, you can play the official one directly into the official servers. It's not gonna be
it's free.
something
So
like
you
one party or something like this. We are speaking about massively online multiplayer experience here.
When will we be able to download the first pre-alpha?
That's probably the best question.
Yes, we
That
had to
was
clear that.
given this live stream. To be able to download the client that will be on the first test, you need to be part of our Discord server. There we'll share a link, the download link, this Friday, probably by the same time that we started this live stream. So in 2 days we'll release the first client for the tests. The servers will be PvP, or you'll be able to choose variation types of servers: PvE, role-playing, PvE, role-playing. Currently, it's quite early to separate and see if we can create a role-playing.
Role-playing
servers
is on our radars. We do think about that, but it's very early for that. Very early.
Yeah. So moving on, some other questions that you guys might have, and
Will there be a reward for the person who manages to fall under the map?
let's not trigger this.
Yes, the reward will be to reset him back.
Yeah, that's probably the reward that he can get.
Yeah.
Like once or twice. If you do it like constantly, you have to wait for the next tests.
Are we having a limited amount of characters per server?
Currently, we set it on 10.
Yes.
We'll probably reduce it even less for the tests, because there you'll be just having one race, as we already said. It's gonna be human male, and there's no need to create 100 human male characters per one account.
Is there an exclusive area for clans or something similar that you can meet your clan? Yes.
Where you can meet? Sorry, what?
Clan, guild. Let's say. I think he means guild.
It will be in future, but not in
Not in
the tests.
the tests, but we plan on having guild strongholds.
Good question. What about the anti-cheat for the tests? That's the name of the test, guys. It's
Cheat as much as you can.
cheat as much as you can, so we can catch you and we can fix those issues. If we create an anti-cheat system, you have to go there and test the anti-cheat system. So
There are some questions like farming bots or things like that are very early to speak about, but yes, we must
it's quite early.
work on that.
Yeah.
Because that is breaking games.
So guys, let's bring the stream probably to an end and answer a few more questions before we conclude the live stream. I think everything regarding
the tests.
the tests and what you'll be able to expect there is already discussed. Probably answering several more questions to wrap the
Okay,
topic up.
let's see. Will it be possible for people to buy some cosmetics for another player, like gifts, I guess?
Currently, no, because the tests themselves won't contain any
I think
cosmetic.
they talk about the future.
In future, yes, you will be able, but currently you won't be able to buy anything even for yourself.
Any boat ship system? Do we plan on that? Let's keep it as a secret.
Let's keep this as a secret. Yeah, it will be quite a good approach. What expectations do you have with this test server from part of the community, at least the Spanish one? And I imagine that all of us, we are really excited and eager to help you as much as possible. That's the expectation of those test servers. To show you what we have achieved so far and to let you guys come up and find as many bugs as possible. That's the aim and that's our expectation from these tests.
Well, there are many questions.
Yeah.
But as I said, as I wrote earlier, we just won't be able to answer all of them. But this is just the beginning of our streams.
And the next ones will be even better, guys.
Yeah, I guess, I hope the next one
Yeah.
will be.
So the next
better.
one, the next live stream will be announced once we conclude the first test on
Next week
12th of June.
we'll announce it.
Yeah, after that we'll create a specific live stream where we'll discuss what we have accomplished, what we have
What we saw on
the tests,
on the tests.
what we managed to resolve so far, and to give you a specific details for the upcoming tests after this one.
Another one. How many languages do the game have? At the moment we have announced Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Bulgarian,
English, obviously.
English.
English is at the
obviously,
root.
yes. We plan on making translating it on German,
Yes,
maybe Italian.
Italian in future.
We forgot French. French is
It's
announced
already
officially.
announced, yes.
Yes. So yeah, it will be translated on many languages. We want as much as possible, as much more people as possible to play it on their native language and have a better experience with it.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So let's give it a go on one last question and conclude the.
Yes, let's see. 4 questions.
There is quite a lot. It's
yeah,
hard
but-
to catch a.
Okay, so will players be able to sell their items like in a free market, or we will have a shop system? There will be some kind of I forgot the word. auction house or something
Yes.
like that,
Yes.
where you can sell it to other players, list it for selling, and you can trade it with other players directly, or there will be vendors where from which you can buy stuff, items, maybe.
But this is earlier.
It's
quite
very early for
to
that, yeah.
to discuss in details. One last question I would like to answer is there an add-on system already approved? Yes, we plan on creating an add-on system, but this thing will come probably as one of the last features
Oh,
before
for sure.
releasing, or probably the last feature
Absolutely.
before releasing the game. We would like to see how the game behaves with the basic, with the privately developed UIs and stuff before allowing the community to modify it alone. We'll be always listening of the
Of
feedback
course.
given regarding the UI, regarding all the
Everything
systems.
you write on the forums is being read by us. So
Even though we may not answer some
yes,
of the
we can't answer everything, but we do read it. Will there be character bound items, or all items are to be tradable?
quite early,
Early
to,
for that. Yes.
to answer.
Will there be different difficulties in the PvE environment? There was a talk of the scaling of the dungeons, but will the same thing happen with the raids? Scaling with the raids.
Yes.
Yes, of
It's
course.
quite important to have scaling everywhere, because, and also giving always additional skills to the bosses, always additional mechanics for you to go over and discover and find yourself a way to overcome those adventures. And
Okay.
I would like to probably finish the stream around here. It was
Yes.
really a pleasure to meet you guys, to answer your questions. We are quite happy with all the feedback, all the questions you've provided to us. We are looking forward seeing you at 12th of June at our first tests.
Yes.
And have a specifically additional live stream where we talk about how the things went on the first tests.